Hello, everyone there. Yeah, we are starting creatively speaking in a moment, and it is just, I mean, in 2 minutes' time, we should have our guests, and I hope to have an amazing time. His name is Dumebi. Yeah, he's even here. He's even here. His name is Dumebi. I'll be adding him up right now. Right now, of course, I'm here earlier. And this is 2 minutes to the plan time. Yeah, it's 2 minutes to the plan time. Let me just have him on board and let us get straight to business. Yeah. Yeah, Johnny Ryder. Hello, boss.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. How do you do? Right, everything?
Yeah, I'm alright.
I'm so much pleased to have you. Yeah,
Same
you
here.
look good.
Thank you.
I like this. Your hairdo. It makes a lot of sense. And how is work? How is the movement so far?
Work is good.
That is good. Glory to God. Glory to God. Glory to God. So, how do you feel being here? How do you feel being here?
What you say?
How do you feel being on this interview session?
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited, and I don't know what to expect, so to speak, and I'm really expectant for yeah.
Something amazing, something great. Okay, we are going to be delving into a lot of things as we move further in our discourse. But I would like to just point out some of the things that are very significant in your bio. So Dumebi Iwuchukwu has been working in communication design for over 9 years now. Wow, that's very that's very wide. So presently he's an art director at Webcoupers Consulting. He has had the privilege of creating enabling experiences for people with brands like Budweiser, Nivea, Sprite, Schweppes, Selling Bank, Globacom, and more. He's also a mentor. He also mentors designers at abplist.org. Previously, he was an art director at Isobar and taught art direction at O2 Academy Vegas. I'm privileged to have gone through, to have been under your tutelage. It has been an amazing one. So
Yeah.
I would like to hear you speak. So how has been the journey so far? I mean, I know you're journeying from pure science down to the space you operate now. So how has the journey been?
Well, the journey has been pretty interesting. Interesting in the sense like you hinted at, I never studied any art course during my schooling.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's unfortunate in a way because the Nigerian school system, once you do very well in school, they'll tend to push you, oh, this one you study medicine and all. So like that was the plan that my family had for me. So like from my junior secondary school, I never did any I never did art, I never did music. It was just like mostly sciences. I went to a special science school. So from SS1 to SS3, I never did any arts course. Like I think the most art course I'd ever done was like economics. I never did commerce and all other courses, right? And then I went on to study a medical course for 5 years. But during this time, I'd always had a varied and a wide interest. So from my very like I think I was like in probably primary four or primary three. So my mom gave me a scrapbook. So it's basically like an empty kind of album. So So I could cut out comics, I could cut out pictures from magazines and like put them like a collage, like sort of. So it's like I used it to collect beautiful things I saw in old magazines that my dad had. So, like thinking back, I didn't realize it, but like I think that was probably around the time I got obsessed with ads because most of the cutouts I collected were from adverts and comics in magazines and old newspapers, right? And then during my junior secondary school, I think a classmate taught me calligraphy, like how to write, like how to intentionally write beautiful letters. Taught me how to do stenciling and all of that, right? So, but throughout the time, so like in my SS3, then like in my consciousness, the most art course that I could do with what I had studied, which was mostly science, was architecture. So my first jam, I actually wanted to do architecture because I was really interested in technical drawing and all of that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that didn't succeed. So my parents were like, "Okay, now you've had your way. Now, oh yeah, go and do medicine." So I went in for radiography. But when I was in school, I started learning graphic design. So that was how it started because I had a laptop and actually started playing around with like PowerPoint, like trying to use their default, all these their default templates to write my name and subject and print it out and use it to cover my notebook and stuff. But over time, I started designing for the school fellowship, and then we had a goal. We wanted our fellowship posters to be different. We wanted it to not look like we were angry that like the ugliest designs in school were fellowship posters. So we wanted it
Wow.
to be different. And I was lucky that my pastor at that time, like he has a high design aesthetic. So he was
Wow.
mostly the one that gave me direction in terms of the kind of aesthetics he wanted. And that was how I
Mm.
started in design. And like even after I graduated, when I was working in the hospital, I would go to work. Like then it was government hospital, so like we closed by 3. I'll go to work, come back, and spend the whole evening and through the night designing or experimenting or playing around on the laptop. Yeah, so and fast forward 2018, I resigned because I wanted to like chase my passion, which was not a medical course. So I came to O2, I taught in O2 Academy. I came to O2 first as a student.
That's
So
student. Okay.
I actually came to do brand strategy because I felt like at the time I felt like I already knew how to design, which is partially true in the sense that I knew how to use the tools, but I didn't know how to be creative with it. I didn't know how to be consistently creative with it. I knew how to use CorelDRAW. I knew how to use Photoshop at the basic level, but I didn't know how to be like, for example, I didn't know how to design for Budweiser or Coca-Cola. I didn't know, I was not at the level where I could really design for big brands. So that was what O2 did for me. So even though I first came to study brand strategy, I actually did brand strategy for a month. So we were given a brand strategy assignment. That was what exposed me. So we're told to do a brand document, which I did, a brand strategy. But I spent like 4 hours doing the assignment, and I took the whole night to design the deck, the presentation. So when I sent in the assignment, Mr. O saw it and I was like, this guy is not a strategist, he's an art director. So we had a conversation and I told him my design as well. And he was like, then what are you doing in brand strategy? So he actually convinced me to switch to art direction. And one thing he said, which resonated with me is I was interested in brand strategy because I felt it was knowledge I didn't have. But he told me that it's that where I would have the most fun or where I would be able to grow quickly is in that area that is already my strength. So I should build on my strength rather than trying to build up my weaknesses. That is that my strengths that will spill over into my weaknesses and build it up. Yeah, so that's how I switched to art direction. And I ended up, we ended up being the best graduating art director. So I was retained to teach at Auto Academy. So I was at O2
Yeah.
I taught at O2 for about a year, roughly 11 months. Then I moved on to Isobar. I worked with Isobar for 6 months, and then I moved on to Webcoupers where I am now. So like that's sort of my design story. Yeah.
Wow. That's- wow. 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 I really like the pacing. I mean, the movement. It's really
Yeah.
encouraging. I mean, the switch and boldness, the courage to even have that switch. But okay, I would like us to just go directly into what we have to discuss today. So you've got a robust experience knowing that you taught design in one of the leading advertising schools in Nigeria, which is Auto Academy, and you've as well been a part of the creative process, having the practical contributions, in the agencies you've worked. So, how, as a person, would you explain human-centered design? And are there designs that are not human-centered? Just give us a kind of clarity to what is known as human-centered design.
Okay. So I'll start from defining what human-centered design. So a simple way, like a very simple way of describing it is solution-centered design, right?
So,
So
okay.
human-centered design, simply put, is solution-centered design. So it's finding out the real problems that people have and then designing solutions for those problems. Simply put, that's human-centered design. So I'll use a story to illustrate it. And many times, human-centered design is implemented in design thinking, which is applying the principles of design in solving real world problems. Right. So there's this community that had very high incidence of malaria and like children, pregnant women, like it was really affecting a lot of people. And some people were actually dying from complications of malaria. So like one of these NGOs like went in and got a lot of mosquito nets donated to the community, and after a period of 6 months, about 6 months thereabout, they came back to the community and they did their it's a research to find out, compared to before, how are the incidence of
Wait a
malaria now. Yeah, and they actually found out that the malaria was still the same. There was no change, even though they had mosquito nets, right? So they came and they came to find out what was going on, and they asked the people, like, did you get the mosquito nets we sent? And they said yes. Is it working? They said, yeah, it's working even more than we expected. And someone was like, okay, show us, how you're using it. And they carried them and they were going and they actually walked past the house. So by the time they walked past the houses, the guys were confused. Like, I was expecting you to take me to your house, right? But they actually took the researchers to the river, and the guys were using the mosquito nets to fish, right? And it was helping them to catch up because you did not
minute.
try to find out the lifestyle of the people. You did not try to teach them how the solution will be implemented in their lives, right? All you did was to come and bring more mosquito nets, right? And eventually, when they went in to study these people, the solution they came up with was to add an insecticide in the paint that they used to paint the house of the people. Right. So instead of bringing mosquito net, they added insecticide. I use it to paint the inside and the outside of their houses, and it actually was like mosquito repellent and
Yeah.
help bring down that incident. Right. So human-centered design means that I don't just carry a solution. You don't come from the point of assumption, like, oh, maybe I'm a brand designer and I've designed logos, or maybe, okay, as I am, and I'm an art director and I've worked for Budweiser, I've worked for on these other brands, right? and maybe a small brand comes, and I assume that, yeah, I'm a boss. Assume that I know everything about design, right? And I try to implement what work for Budweiser or work for Schweppes or work for another brand on another brand without actually investigating to find out what would solve the problem of that brand, right? It might just be something very simple. It might just be just take a picture, put a simple text. It might not be something complex. You understand? So human-centered design is basically, like I said, solution-centered design, right? So
Wow.
you asked the question in the beginning, like, are there types of design that are not human-centered? Yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just want to some designs are functional, right? In as much as most designs, because design is, I think it started from, is a way of communicating, right? And communication has to
Yeah.
be between two people or between groups of people, right? So
Yeah.
most design has to do with communication, but sometimes there are certain designs that are just decorative, right? So if I paint my room and I paint it in a way that, let's say, I use African motif around my room, right? It's just decorative. It's just something that probably make me feel at peace, make me feel at home. It's decorative, right? It's not solving a problem per se,
Yeah.
right? In as much
Yeah.
as someone can say that it's solving an emotional problem or it's making me feel at home, but like functionally, like it doesn't solve
That
a
could be
problem.
secondary.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
a plain wall might as well have the same serve the same purpose. Yeah. So to recap, human-centered
Yeah.
design is solution-centered design. Is that design with the intention to solve problems? And I will end this with another example. So I worked what I studied was radiography, right? So I worked as a radiographer. So part of what we did was X-rays, ultrasound, and there were a lot of other procedures, right? So one of the things I experienced when working as a radiographer was that children are afraid of the X-ray machine because it's big and they are sick. They've been in the hospital, and even the tiny needle that's like they were injected with is painful, right? So they come in assuming that, oh, this machine is going to hurt them. So most
Mm.
times you have to like sing to them, play with them. Sometimes we bring in toys, make them relax so that we can attend to them, right? So one of the things that GE is a company that produces um GE is a company that produces medical equipment. So one of the things
Generally.
they did to reduce the anxiety of children during these procedures was actually, like I gave of painting my room. So in my own exam centered, right? It wasn't solution oriented. But in
Just
this case, they painted the room like, yeah, so they
wow.
painted the room, the X-ray room, like a spaceship. So it was like a spaceship, and the X-ray machine was like a rocket, right? So when the child comes in, they play with the child and they tell the child they are like a captain, you're going to enter your spaceship and you're going to, and all of that. So that experience that used to be traumatic just because of
Yeah.
painting of the room without spending a lot of money, without buying an extra piece of equipment, it became an enjoyable solution for kids, right? So that's an
Wow.
example of human-centered design.
Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic. I like that aspect of that. I mean, when you wanted to take children to do the ultrasound and all, and they have a new sense of amusement. Like they are not seeing it as traumatic
Yeah,
as want to enter something they don't know about. You get wow. I think that's a
yeah,
fantastic
yeah,
one. So you mentor
yeah,
designers, and I've been a part of I mean that experience, and I must ascertain the fact that it is very your I mean your leadership, I mean your mentorship sense is very exceptional, and I think the experience you've had with Mr. Ho, being that you wanted to do brand strategy, and you had a switch via his communication as regarding the fact that you will do well as an art director. And at the point, I don't know, maybe you remember, but at the point in O2, while at the point, I guess I was very tired of some developments as regards art direction, and I was just like, I think still a bit better with writing because I'm in journalism school. I know the rudiments of writing and all that, and I was considering switching to copy. And when I came to you, you advised that with art direction. So as designers, as someone that writes in the aspect of design, art direction. I mean, uh, so what do you look out for in people that makes you say you will do better in this area? I mean, that it's a futuristic sense for them that um, I know I will do well because this person said I will do well. So what are the things you look?
The truth is, I believe that anyone can design, right? And there is this philosophy I have that I don't compare designers and say, oh, this person is a better designer than this person, right? I believe that anyone can design and that every designer is at different levels.
Mm,
But one of the things I've learned is there are two things that make people to doubt themselves as designers. One is a knowledge gap, right? And the second is imposter syndrome. All right. So
mm,
a knowledge gap is, you, when you don't know something or when you don't know enough about something, you tend to doubt yourself. Feel you're not good enough. But then, like, the solution is in the problem, is a knowledge gap. So all you need is to get the knowledge. Like the knowledge you get to bridge that gap, right? So what you need is to have that fortitude or the discipline to bear with that emotion or that feeling of incompetence, because whenever you feel incompetent, right? But
yeah.
competence is only built by learning and practicing it, right? So one of the things I always, as long as there is that desire to be a designer, right? Because if you don't want to do it, then there's no point, right? But
Mm,
once you have that desire, then all you need to do is stay consistent with like building knowledge, gaining knowledge, expose yourself to the knowledge that other designers are sharing, get mentors, find someone that has gone through that journey to encourage you, to walk you through the process. Practice, 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 right? Because I know my when I was in O2, actually, I hated image manipulation because like it was frustrating me. I wasn't very good with the pen tool, right? But my copyright then, I will complain to my copywriter that everything, every idea, image, but he encouraged me that guy, you know that once you learn this thing now, it will no longer be a
mm,
problem for you, right? And that statement propelled me to like to focus on learning and mastering image manipulation. And the moment I learned it, like a lot easy, right? Because I can
mm,
now come up with creative ideas that involved image manipulation without being scared that I won't be able to execute it. You get.
mm,
So the second part is, like I said, the first part is knowledge, right? To gain knowledge to fill that knowledge gap. So the second part is imposter syndrome. So it's that feeling that you don't belong here. So like I had
mm,
loads of it. So in as much as before I went into advertising professionally, I have had about 5 years experience in graphic design. But I had not really worked on big brands, right? I had, the biggest brand I'd
mm,
worked on for that at that time was my aunt's law firm, which is big, sharp, but like not at the level of the brands I was coming to now. So there was that feeling that I wasn't qualified. There was that feeling that these are brands that are paying the agencies millions so that I'll design for. Is my design what this amount, right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn that um me and other more experienced art directors was what I've been exposed to, what I know, what they know, right? And the truth is that I know a lot of things. For example, if it comes to radiography, I know a lot. They don't know anything about it, right? And when it comes to art direction, they know a lot, and I'm learning. So instead of
Yeah.
seeing it as something to as a barrier, I saw it as a collaborate an opportunity to collaborate. So one of the biggest lessons I learned during time is that creativity is teamwork, right? So
Yeah.
approached creative briefs or creative problems from the context of what can I design this, but I'll approach it from the context of guys, what do you think? So I would, what do you think? What do you think? Got to so I'll gather as many ideas and get as many inspirations as I can. And when I'm working
Mm.
on it, I will seek as much feedback as I can. Right. So with each feedback, of course, my design will improve until I get to the final design. So yeah, like anyone can design as long as you're interested in it. And if you stay consistent over a period of time, I know people that started designing for maybe 2 years and now they are designers, right? So it's not really a function of how long you've learned design, it's about how deep you learn and understand the concepts of design.
Fantastic. Okay, so I was to um with what you said last in terms of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is internal; it's coming from within, and there's another chain to that, which is the internal. But let's talk more about the external. You put out your design out there, and people say funny things about your level of expertise. And most times, they come from clients. They come from people that are maybe there. So how do designers handle that funny experience?
Criticism, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing, right? Like I like the fact that this question is coming now after we've talked about human-centered design. So the way
Yeah.
I look at my job is that my job is to solve the problem of the client, right? And their problem is that they want to connect to their consumer. So as a designer, one of the ways I just help myself to do my job is in as much as I'm called an art director, but in my mind I call version centered designer. And what that means,
Mm.
the job of my design is to help the business sell, right?
Yeah.
Is to help the business sell, to help brand get consumers to buy their product or to sign up for their service or to buy their SIM card or to patronize them basically, right? So
Yes.
based on that, when the client comes back with, I don't see it as criticism, I see it as feedback or revert. When they come back and they say, this design will not work because of blah blah or XYZ, right? I would
Mm.
listen to them. So first is I would listen to them. I think I have grown a lot because when I was starting out as a designer, I used to feel attacked. I used to feel disrespected. As if like maybe I spent 4 or 5 hours working on this and you're coming to tell me this. So I used to feel like so you're telling me that I wasted my time, right? But now I have changed the way I look at it that my job is not to spend 5 hours. So the hours I
Mm.
spent is irrelevant. What's relevant is the impact might make for the client, right? So if at the end the client comes back and tells me, oh, this, I'll be like, okay, I will listen, right? And the truth is, sometimes the clients can be wrong. Sometimes they might not understand your concept, all right? So in that sense, I will try to explain the design, explain the concept, and I also try to maybe test the design with people internally, externally, my friends. I'm like, guys, look at this. What do you think? Right? And then I'll go back to the client and be like, okay, I asked some people this, knowing your brand, and this is their impression of this design. But if the client insists, right, effect the change they want and send to them because I'm working for them essentially. All right. The axis when I know that there are cases that I've done designs that are, so to speak, like at this level, and the client
Yeah.
comes back and make requests that is maybe, and what I
Mm.
do is if I'm not able to convince the client to go with this design, I will do this for them, and it will never appear it's myself with that design. I'll know that I designed this. Okay,
Mm.
so that like I have brands I worked on that I don't mention a lot in my portfolio because that happened a lot. So but the thing is most importantly I try to preserve creativity and mental health when I because you know creativity is it's the way how do I put it? Your level of creativity at per time is dependent on your emotions, right? So when you're frustrated or when you're upset, your creativity drops actually. So what I try to do is I don't allow the criticism, I don't allow the feedback to get my creativity to drop. Instead, I take it in stride, and sometimes the feedback would elevate my design. Because for example, I would say I grew a lot. I think my highest period of growth as a designer was when I worked at Isobar. Because I was lucky to work under Ola Olowo, and he has extensive international experience as a designer, and especially working on Budweiser. I had the biggest imposter syndrome I'd ever had when I started working on Budweiser because I'd never worked on a global brand at that scale at that point. So one of the things I did was I took their brand guide. They had like three brand guides, and I studied them like a Bible. I studied the different ways they designed across different countries. I studied Budweiser India's designs. I studied Budweiser USA, Budweiser UK, even Chile, some other countries, right? So I got to see the essence or the spirit of like kind of spirit they want to express through their designs. So when I started designing for them, I got harsh feedback. Like I got one time Ola called me into the office and told me that I design like an old man, that I need to free myself, that I need to loosen up. And I like it pained me, oh, I was like my chest, but actually
Uh,
took that feedback. I spent time, for example, he would refer me to like Nike designs. He would refer me to look at
mm.
what how Nike is designing on social. I would see how, sometimes basketball, I was studying basketball posters, these NBA posters, how they design. Inspiration from a lot of sources during that time. And I actually grew. And at the same time,
Mm.
like one of the things that also happened to me, then I barely knew how to animate. But when you actually do a beautiful design and you show Allah, okay, animate it, right? So suddenly I did not just like finish designing, I had to animate that design. So I had to learn how to animate at the high level in a very short time. So I had to like my colleagues that already knew how to do animation. So a lot of humility is needed to handle like
Mm.
feedback and criticism, and you have to have a heart that is like you should be quick to learn, right? To have a humble heart, accept everybody and everybody. So I
Oh,
would meet with my colleagues. I'm like, guy, how do I animate this to do this and do this? Right. So I have to learn that first. I have to like do either a storyboard or at least have an idea of how I want the animation to move, and then I would go in to do the actual animation. Right. And like slowly, less than 2 months, I was able to do billboards that were on Lekki toll gates,
oh,
animated billboards that was like on LED billboards around Lagos, and such things like actually grew my confidence as a designer. So I was things and accept more feedback, because like the higher you go, the harsher the feedback because the higher their expectations as well.
yeah.
Yeah, so like I've learned to take feedback in strides. I don't see them as attacks. So I see them as okay, this information is important to improve the design, right? Because at the end we want something that everybody is proud of, the client is proud of, the agency is proud of. Me as a designer, I'm proud of it. Yeah, so like yeah.
Fantastic. So, with all of this, I mean, how do you define courage? How do you define courage? Will you say there's something just about facing it the way it comes? I mean, do you have a bit of explanation to what you term courage as?
Um, okay, I like this question because okay, the way I like to see it is bravery, but I think they're essentially courage, bravery, almost the same meaning, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's one definition of courage that I've come to learn is
Mm,
that courage is taking action despite your fear, right?
mm,
And I've come to like this because like there's I'm part of a design community and there that say that one of the ways procrastination can mask itself is by like conscious learning, right? So for example, personally I've been learning 3D for a while, but I've never executed a 3D project. So that's like a kind of procrastination, right? And that's because actually designed a 3D asset despite my feeling that I don't know how to do it yet. Right. So courage, I
mm,
would say as a designer is being willing to do that thing you feel you can't do because that's the
mm,
process, is within that process that you actually learn by feeling doing it, you
mm,
take your lessons, you learn how to improve. And I think where I've experienced this a lot was like since I joined Webcoupers because Webcoupers stressed me in ways that I got involved in projects that I had never been at that scale. So for example, I worked on a, I'm not going to mention the brand, but I worked on an
yeah.
Instagram filter for the first time after I joined Isobar, right? And after I joined Webcoupers, and I did not know how Instagram filters were created until that time. But my boss trusted me. I was like, maybe I want you to do this, right? So he sent me the resources from it was actually the Instagram and Facebook. Sent me all the resources, sent me tutorials, sent me and told me to my time, to take my time to learn, right? And the cool thing was I took my time and I learned it and I executed it and it came out fine, right?
Wow.
And that was because he trusted me. And even there was a time I was behind schedule, and I told him like was I know I promised you I was going to deliver this tomorrow, but it's actually going to take me more time. And it was like take a whole week, finish it, share what you
Mm,
have, right? So that was one of the things. Another area was it's actually not very popular, but instead like Google, um, there are these interactive ads on Google. Like for example, you see this glow ad that is revolving or something
it's
like
like a
that. So
3D
interactive ads. Yeah, exactly.
particle. Mm,
Yeah, so that was one of the projects that I was also responsible for. So I had to learn how to create it. So they're actually HTML files. So I had to learn how to create it, execute it for a number of our brands, and yeah, they turned out well. They turned out well, and we executed campaigns with it internally, right? So I'll say courage is that being willing to do it. You can just be watching tutorials and you never touch the software, you never touch After Effects, you never touch Illustrator or try to do that kind of image manipulation.
Mm,
You had not learned, right? But
yeah.
it's very important you start. So you start, make your mistakes, do that crappy design, learn from it, show someone, ask questions, they will improve the design, right? For example, if you don't know how to crop, the only way to learn it is not just by watching tutorials, it's by actually cropping yourself. You know,
Picking
like
up.
learning how to use pen tool, learning how to use the polygon lasso. Yeah, so
Yes.
practical is very important. So you need to
Mm.
take that step. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Fantastic, fantastic. So, as a design tutor, so and someone still very part of the process. So, how will you what will you say concerning the future of design? You get there are a couple of skills for the 21st century. There are some skills that are fading off with they won't become relevant. You get because there are a lot of things coming into the spectrum now in terms of motion. I know before we don't used to have motion design the way we have it now, but right now we are having a lot of additional, details coming in, and there are other digital skills and the skills for the future that will become relevant while others are fading off. So, what will you say concerning what the future of design holds, especially for people that have the interest of coming into the space?
Okay. What I'm going to say is actually going to be unconventional, right? And because most designers, I think the biggest problem with design education in Nigeria is that most designers tend to focus on the tools of design. So you tend to learn Photoshop, CorelDRAW, Figma, and the rest. But few designers learn to think like a designer or learn to be creative as a designer or learn to be conversion centered. Like what I said, like the way I see myself is I'm a conversion designer. So I was watching I was actually in a conference yesterday, an online conference, and someone finished the talk and he said that the big advice he gives designers is to learn how to sell, right? Because beyond the beautiful interfaces, beyond the beautiful graphics, the most important thing is I did designs for this client for the past 6 months. You should be able to say that the client was able to get this number of clients or this kind of result because of the design, right? And
Yeah.
for me, conversion center design, probably because I started designing in fellowship. So conversion center design was important to the way I saw design. So I would design a program flyer so that you want to come to the program, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the most proud moment I had those early days was when I designed a flyer and we were sharing it and people would sticker because the flyer was so beautiful. People wanted to keep it as stickers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like for me, that's like beauty, not means to an end, right? So
Yeah.
I'm using that design to I want people to remember the product. I want people to associate the joy they feel with the product. Not so like I think the best design is invisible or the best design is just that the designer is invisible, right? So you design in a way that when someone sees this, they don't ask who designed this, but they feel the product, like, or
Wow.
they desire the product, they desire to own the product, instead of the focus to be on who this design. The focus should be
Mm,
on, oh my god, I have to get this product. Do you understand? So it
yeah.
should be, like I said, conversion centered design. So I think the most important, because now there are AI, like you can go to Canva and use the Canva templates, or go on Freepik and get a graphic template and just change the text, right? So there are shortcuts, so to speak, that a regular person can take and create a good looking design. There are AI that are actually doing beautiful designs now. AI is even writing ads and all of that. But what AI cannot do is design thinking. AI cannot do human centered design. AI cannot do
Mm,
solution, because this is based on empathy. It's not based on critical thinking. It's based on the fact that
mm,
you can relate with the audience or with the person that wants to look at the design, and you know what will draw the person in. So I'll give an example, right? Domino's pizza flyers are very simple. It's a picture of the pizza and beautiful typography on top with Domino's logo, right? It's almost all their flyers are like promo kind of designs, right? But the image, the photography of in Domino's pizza flyers is always done in a way that the picture is taken eye level. It's taken from eye level. So whenever you're holding the flyer in your hand, it's as if you're holding pizza in your hand. So,
wow.
and the way they take it, you can see the cheese, you can see the thing. So it makes you start salivating, you become hungry. Same with like
Mm,
Cold Stone, right? Some of these guys, it's intentional, right? So it might not
mm,
be in the terms of how beautifully the layout is, right? The
mm,
art director is responsible for working with the photographer to get that, and he's the one that will say, I want this shot to convey this image, right? So I would say, I
mm.
think one of the most important skills most designers should focus on is learn how to connect with people and convert. And one of the way you can do that is like try to add emotion to your designs. Try and add emotion. So for example, imagine a difference, right, between a coffee ad where you have a cup of coffee and beside it is um Dumebi coffee, a wake up
Mm.
call, something like that, right? But like just imagine a cup of coffee with text beside it
Uh,
and you have the logo, right? And then
mm,
imagine another ad where you have someone that is sleeping on an upstairs, like maybe the bed is at a penthouse, and you have a wrecking ball. You have a wrecking ball swinging down, about to come to the bed. Like the wrecking ball is like this, and the bed is like this, right? And then you have the copy, the maybe coffee, wake up call, something, something. So looking at that
yeah.
image, you can already, like, you're already cringing. You want to wake the guy up rudely, right? And you know that sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're groggy, or you might need to like start your day, might be just
Mm,
take that coffee and your brain is active and all of. And in that way,
yeah.
you've already communicated that. And the difference is just the image. The layout for the second one might not be as beautiful as the first, but the emotion or it's going to be more captivating and interesting
But
than the
the
first
human
design. You
connection,
understand? Yeah.
yes, yes. Wow, wow. You really approach your stories from a I'm glad you are here. I'm glad to have you because I know even beyond the people that have joined this live session, by the time I upload it on my feed and wherever it appears, people will, I mean, more people will still get to access this information. I do not take this lightly. I called it as I would like to have IG Live and you obliged. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Timito Kweta when he was here and he was
Thank you for.
like, he was like, you didn't see a couple of other people. I mean, there's someone here saying you should do giveaway. So, are you interested in doing giveaway? Okay. Yeah. Always, I really appreciate your presence and hope you'll be able to take one or two things out from all the things we really talked about. So maybe before we call it quick, is there any other thing you'd like to share that I don't bring up in my questions?
I tell me, yeah, you're asking the question.
Yeah. Okay. Since the okay, so I'm saying are there things you would like to express that I didn't bring up in my questions?
Um, one of the things I can say is I don't even know. What I would say is to every designer out there that is like climbing the creative ladder, so to speak.
Mhm.
The world needs us, right? Yeah, the world always looks better with a splash of color. A beautifully designed world is better. One of the reasons I love Japan and Japanese culture is that every little aspect of their lives is beautifully designed, and it makes
Mm.
life better than, like, for everyone. So one of the things I would say, aside from most of the things I've said earlier, imposter syndrome, everybody feels it. I feel it at this level because I think the reason is because there is a difference between our taste and our level of skill at every level. So when you
Yeah.
are growing as a designer, you have design inspiration, people you look up to, right? And most times their level of design is here and your taste is climbing. But most times, as your skill level is climbing, your taste is always climbing, right? So at
Yeah.
every point you are as a designer is almost always better than your skill level. So that means you would
Yeah.
never feel like you are a good enough designer. The only thing that will
Mm.
happen is when you compare your current work with maybe last year, you see, okay, there was growth,
Mm.
right? So you need to learn to acknowledge yourself as a designer that, okay, I'm not at the top yet, but I'm on my way there. You need to acknowledge yourself as a creative individual, and you need to be more
Mm.
open to collaboration. Like I said, creativity is teamwork. Learn to work with other people, ask questions, accept feedback, improve your work. Um, Seek mentorship, right? So I know
Yeah.
that it's not always very easy to get people to mentor you as a designer, which is why I
Mm.
recommend adplists.org. There, every designer
Yeah.
they mentor there for free. You're going to see designers that came with Google, Uber, Facebook, some of the top companies in the whole world, and book a session with them when their calendars are open, and you're going to have discussions with them on portfolio review, interview advice, a whole lot of stuff, right? So it's an accessible platform. You can like book mentorship. It's adplists.org. I'm going to type it in
Yeah.
so that you guys can take it. So for young designers here, you can go on that platform and like, yeah, adplist.org, right? Another thing I would say is learn to find inspirations everywhere. When you watch movies, don't just watch movies because it's interesting. Try and study the storytelling um methods they used in the movie. So learn to be a storyteller. So the better you are at storytelling, the better you can translate that to your designs and try to use your designs to, tell a story.
Mm.
I think that's those are things I will leave with.
Wow, I'm so much happy to have you. Sincerely, I'm so much happy to have you. And your session has been
The player is
has been
mine.
the most has been the most beautiful one so far because for the ones I've had so far, there's always internet fluctuation and all that. So I'm just happy to have this with. Thank you so much for showing up. Yeah,
Yeah,
hope to connect with you some
thank
other
you.
time. Thank you so much. It's a great one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest.